Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast. I am Race for the Prize. Please go to racefortheprize.com if you want to get access to the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet in front of you. We're talking Las Vegas Xfinity race, trying to make some picks and some projections. First word of warning, as I always do, if you are looking at the lap-by-lap data from racefortheprize.com, be careful. Don't completely abandon your process from earlier in the week. If you like certain drivers, don't just completely abandon them because of the practice speeds in front of you. But do use the practice speeds in front of you. Now, there's a couple ways that you can look at it. One of the main things that we want to do is identify who's going to lead laps, who's going to run fast laps. And we can look at some of the practice data. One of the things you can look at is the best 5 laps they ran from practice. I don't know how helpful that would be, considering that Cole Custer, Chandler Smith, AJ, all pretty much were running the same speed, 176.3. So not much of a difference there. You could even lump Austin Hill in there. Another thing that you could do, which I would encourage, is maybe not so much worried about who's going to lead laps in stage 1 or even stage 2. We could see the lead change hands. What we really want to do is identify the guy that's going to lead the most laps late in the race. And so maybe you want to look at fall off and see who has a little bit better speed down the stretch. You can see here what were their speeds, laps 15 through 20, and see, like, actually Riley Herbst had quite a bit of speed late in his run. That is interesting because some people want to play Herbst because, again, they may not have seen the turnaround, even though last year he won at his home race in Las Vegas. Maybe you're going to say, well, he's just not as fast in practice as these other guys. Well, if you look at the practice speeds from last fall's race, it was the same thing. His practice speeds were about like this, and when it came down to it in stage 3, he had the hot rod. He ran away with the race. So he's definitely someone you want to consider for laps led. Even though he doesn't quite have the starting position of these other drivers, that doesn't mean anything in stage 3. He can make his way forward and make the right moves and have some pretty good long run speed. He did it last year. He can do it again. So the first part of the puzzle, let's do the easy part first before we try to figure out who's going to lead laps. So just do the easy chalk guys. Anthony Alfredo is going to be chalk. Our Motorsports wasn't that great last year, if you look, but that's because we look at their intermediate track data. That was with Blaine Perkins driving. Now you've got Anthony Alfredo, who is a much better talent and has a better crew chief in Joshua Graham, who was the crew chief for none other than Parker Retzlaff last year, had a really good season for Jordan Anderson. Now Retzlaff has Chad Kendrick. That's an even better upgraded crew chief, and we're seeing the speed here. I don't know if I want to consider him for a lap leader just yet, but we'll come back to that conversation in a second. But clearly, Anthony Alfredo is going to be very widely played, and I have no problem with that. If we look at a projection for him, let's say he gets to 18th, which I think is conservative. He is the 3rd best point per dollar play on the slate. 4th best point per dollar play on the slate is Justin Allgaier, who also is pretty safe, and he is going to be the next piece of the puzzle. So now we've got 2 of our 6 drivers. Where do we go next? I think Hailie Deegan will be popular. She is starting towards the back. She had a little bit better speed in practice than she did in qualifying, and she is undervalued based on her equipment. This AM racing equipment with Sawinski/Tim Self was arguably the best at the intermediate tracks last year. Now, Brett Moffitt was driving that car, but if Moffitt was routinely getting almost top 10s at some of these tracks, but 15th place was a safe place for Moffitt. I think 20th is fine for Deegan, and 20th will work. So she should be popular. Josh Williams is going to be something people are going to try to wrap their heads around. I've talked about this all week. Yeah, it's a great story. The garage guy gets a ride, but the garage guy got the ride because he has sponsorship for the entire season. And it's starting to look like this isn't your normal call-it car. Maybe it's the new team thing, but maybe he just doesn't have the hot rod that was given to other call-up drivers. And this is mainly he brings sponsorship, and he just doesn't quite have the same resources. At least that's the way it looks from practice. I wouldn't say completely abandon him. I mean, early in the week, you think 7,400 for a call-up car, but there was that concern. Is this really a call-up type car? And it's not looking like that. And Josh Williams is not looking very talented. I mean, this is his old ride. The rookie driver and late model kid, got some rides with Junior Motorsports in the past. In the 92 for Gosselin, actually outperformed him in every metric. So that's embarrassing for Josh Williams. I mean, he couldn't beat Blaine Perkins, who was terrible for Hour last year. Patrick Emmerling's not a bad driver, but Emmerling's going to get more performance out of the daughter car than he was out of these Gase rides that he was driving. And now he's mainly just a driver and not an owner. He probably will improve, but I don't know if that's somewhere I want to go. But Williams is something you're going to think about. I don't think I'm going to end up going there, especially if people are really hyped and excited. I just don't see the speed in the car, for all the reasons I just talked about. So Deegan, Algar, Alfredo, those are the easy pieces I think that will go in. Let's go to the next situation, which is identifying the fastest car that's going to lead laps. I like Custer a lot, like Chandler Smith a lot. As you can see, practice speeds are all holding up. They've got the track position, so I am not too worried about that. If you want to look, not worried, I guess I would be excited. Everything looks good for those cars. Again, the field is pretty close together. I do like that he went on a pretty solid long run and feels comfortable with his car. But even Chandler Smith feels comfortable with his car. He was really fast out of the gate. He didn't have too much fall off. Excited to see what he can do for JGR. Although JGR as a tire program, I don't know. You've got the part-timers in Almirola and Nemechek with new first-time crew chiefs. Didn't quite show a lot of speed. I don't want to completely bury them, but I don't think Almirola is going to lead a lot of laps. I can't rule Nemechek out. I really think that Herbst is somewhere we might need to go. And even if Herbst doesn't lead a lot of laps, he does have the potential for place differential, and if simply none of these other guys score enough fantasy points, he can slide in there. He has the benefit of place differential points. Brandon Jones had some really good speed, but at the end of the day, it's still Brandon Jones. I would much rather go Herbst, but you're going to have to pay a lot more for that. Junior Motorsports cars were fine, so if you like Herbst, you're going to get a couple more place differential here, but he still has to beat some pretty good cars in front of him. And I'm not sure I see him really climbing up that much. Jesse Love is intriguing. I am not a big believer in the Sam Hunt. Sam Hunt's good, mid-pack, but he can maybe knock on the door of the top 10. Corey Heim looked wonderful in that truck race last night. But again, that's a different style of racing. And it was a great race. But as you see with the truck package, being good in the truck does not mean you are going to be good in the Xfinity Series and vice versa. And we could argue that's the case maybe possibly for Haley Deegan. Maybe that just racing style of side drafting and pushes, slingshot racing, almost like IROC, didn't suit Haley Deegan's style in the front or even in the mid-pack where she was often running. It just didn't work out for her. You put her in a more overpowered car, maybe that's the looser, with more horsepower in the Xfinity Series, maybe she can perform. We did see her in that one small sample size of a race in the Xfinity Series perform pretty well. And same thing with Heim. Just because he was good last night doesn't make me want to play him. This is probably a 15th place car. Maybe he gets to 10th if things work out for him, but at 7,800, I don't see it working. Clements, I just don't see much upside here, and he's not that cheap. So again, Mayer could be played because he can get you place differential, but he's not really saving you that much. I would much rather get up to Herbst at 9,500. Probably not on Almirola. Nemechek's probably just too expensive at the end of the day. That's the easiest way to make that decision. He's got to lead a bunch of laps and run away with this race. He's priced like Nemechek from last year, which was the number one JGR car. This is not the number one JGR car. It's not the number one JGR crew chief. This is not the Ty Gibbs car. And so I think even if he does have a good race and makes me look bad, it's going to be hard for him to work at 11,000. Sorry. Jesse Love, I'm probably just not there yet. Probably asking a little too much from the young driver at his first intermediate Xfinity race. He could possibly top 5, but so could Sam Mayer. And I don't see really, you can see in these practice speeds that, he's probably just not right there yet. They're going to get there. Danny Stockman's going to be pretty good, and I just don't want to get him hyped up because he was good at a super speedway. So not where I'm going to go. We'll explore that later in the season. Right now for lap leader, it's Custer, it's Chandler Smith. I'm going to take at least 2 of these guys. That's what the optimizer is spitting out at the moment. You want to slide over to AJ Allmendinger, that is fine. We have seen him be really good at Las Vegas. He's won at Las Vegas. Last year, Chandler Smith was about a lap away from winning at Las Vegas. Again, call it at speed. But Custer's going to have speed. Chandler Smith has speed. Austin Hill is going to be there. He's the guy that passed Chandler Smith at the end of that race. So he'll be there dicing it up. Ryan Sieg's not going to be on the board. Parker Kligerman, I just don't see how he's going to score enough fantasy points to really be all that relevant. Could have a good race. If he finishes 5th, he's just not going to be a good point per dollar play. And If you think Sammy Smith, again, this is a guy switching over to a new team, new crew chief. Are they going to be able to leapfrog a more experienced crew chief, a more experienced driver? I don't think so. So no Sammy Smith, Sheldon Creed, not looking very good. We expect a lot more out of him. And maybe it's time to face the reality that maybe Creed just kind of had a pretty good run there in the truck series, had a well-funded car, pulled out some miraculous wins, and the 2020 COVID season just worked out for him. Yes, he has flashed brilliance in the truck series. There are times where he's looked fast in Xfinity, but maybe we want to dial down the expectations. I'm not going to be on Sheldon Creed. You want to chase Brandon Jones, good luck. I would much rather find some money to get out of that category. So we know some of these guys in the back. Now, can these mid-packers get something done? I kind of like Poole. He's not going to score a lot of points. It's really just who among this group is going to score the most points and slide into the optimal lineup. And at the moment, the lineup is saying go with Honeyman. And one of the reasons why Honeyman is because he's so cheap. You want to go Honeyman, you want to go McLeod. BJ is even cheaper. BJ can get you a little bit more place differential. He has much more experience, but this Young car is a bit of a mystery. It is intriguing. Young stepped up from the truck series into the Xfinity series. He wouldn't be doing this if he didn't have a plan. And this is the first time they rolled out their intermediate track program, and 24th on the short run, qualified 19th. Clearly could be a worse situation for them. Let's see just look at Honeyman's laps. Decent. Put down some decent laps. Could he hang on to his spots and not completely kill your lineup? I would consider him. I would consider BJ McLeod, and I also would consider Ryan Ellis, who can just kind of hang on. I mean, you look at the cars they're surrounded by, there's not really stiff competition. They should finish in front of all these guys, other than probably Alfredo. Allgaier could leap over them. Maybe if Williams gets something together, I don't know. Leitz may move forward some, but not much. Deegan could probably leap over them. But for the most part, these guys from 17 to 24 should battle it out. Weatherman has a decent car. Gosselin was okay last season. Finished kind of strong at the intermediate tracks. He usually got the most out of that car. He definitely is in consideration. If you can get up to Burton, I don't see too much upside, though. Point per dollar wise, we want to save a little bit, so he probably won't be the guy. Probably won't go Clements. I would consider Poole. I think I might go down here and take a little bit more savings with Ryan Ellis and the Tommy Joe Martin car, who had more speed, right? So I'm actually going to probably bold that. I like that. I'll consider Weatherman. Honeyman's going to be in there just because he is so cheap. Yaley's experience could carry through. I think I'll just take the savings. Wouldn't completely rule him out. We are definitely going to consider BJ because he is cheap. And I don't see a lot of competition down here, right? Dawson Cram. Johnny Davis cars were back half of 25 to 30 last season. I don't see that changing. I'll undo that. Blaine Perkins was terrible for our sports last year. You got Steve Addington as his crew chief. Steve Addington won't go away. So, I mean, the Sieg cars are halfway decent, but Perkins is not halfway decent. Just killed that hour car last year, but ours should be back with Alfredo. Joshua Graham, good crew chief, as I mentioned before, for Parker Retzlaff. I don't think Smithley can go that much further. CJ McLaughlin needs a bunch of wrecks. If you want to play like, hey, I think there's going to be wrecks and chaos, 4,500 through attrition, he moves forward, and you're pivoting away from BJ and Leland Honeyman. But even then, they might still score more points than he does. I'm not crazy about Smithley or McLaughlin. That's just a straight punt. Not going to Gase. You need chaos for Gase to work. And it can happen at Las Vegas, but it could also be he goes 3 laps down in this race. Kyle Sieg should be considered. Plenty of experience now. Sieg cars are decent in the mid-pack here with an average finish of 16th at the intermediate tracks, and a handful of those best finishes here were Sieg. Most of the time it's Ryan in the better car, but how long before Ryan and Kyle kind of equalize? I would argue not very long. I don't think Ryan's going to get that much better, although Ryan had a pretty good qualifying effort right here. Pretty solid. But Kyle Sieg definitely going to be on the board in the back. I just don't think I need to go to the JD cars. And I think that's pretty good for identifying some of this value in the back that I like. Just going back to it, could be a great story for Parker Retzlaff, but he's got to lead lap. Does he have to lead laps? Not necessarily. If you give him 5 hog points, which are fast laps / lap sled points, just because he's running up front clean air, he's got to beat some good cars. I think it's very aggressive to give him a 6th place finish. Anybody in a Jordan Anderson car, a 6th place finish is pretty extreme, but even then, he's still just our 12th best point per dollar play. You're not really getting much of a discount, and you really shouldn't. He had a really good season last year, and he's showing improvement. These cars are showing improvement. He's priced about where he should be. Unfortunately, he had a really good car and qualified really well, and it's great for him in real life, but it probably isn't going to work out in fantasy. So, close, I think Custer and Smith, the first 2 guys that I would go to in terms of leading laps. I would have them the most. Hill would be probably next on my list of possible guys. Obviously, you're jamming in Alfredo, and you're jamming in Justin Allgaier. I like Haley Deegan, and I still Leitz is going to be a guy that I explore. I've talked enough about Williams. I think I've given you enough guys to build your pool around. RaceForThePrize.com. Like, subscribe, share the video. I appreciate you guys checking out all the stuff that I do. Please, again, share it. If you want to get access to this fancy NASCAR spreadsheet, if you want to really identify some of these laps and practice and break things down and have more control instead of just following a tout's picks, then please consider purchasing the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet. The information is at racefortheprize.com. $27 for the month of March. But if you want this sheet and the Las Vegas included, because Las Vegas was a part of February, $30, and I'll throw all the Las Vegas stuff in with all the February sheets that are to come. So Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. Maybe you just want to give me a donation. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. The links are below. Like, subscribe, share. Blessed to have you guys here. Love you guys. And Trip to Light's fantastic.